Hey guys, so we thought it was about time for us to sit down and do a little explanation video for you guys to explain exactly why we're doing this vlog and why we've decided to make it such an important part of our lives. And so yeah.
Yeah, I've had some people ask me why we're vlogging. They say it's just like a blog, so what's the point of recording it and posting it on YouTube or wherever we're posting it? And I feel like it's gonna be so awesome to have every day of our lives just documented and on camera, and we'll be able to go back in a few years and see all the cute moments, the silly moments, the fun memories that we've made, you know, all the good and the bad. We're gonna have it documented, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, so everything that we've done up to this point has been fun or exciting or stuff that makes us smile, but that hasn't always been the case, and that's kind of the purpose of this vlog. We've had some very difficult times in our lives which have kind of led us to this point now, and so this is a little bit of the story of how we got here. So Stephanie and I, we were married in 2008 in August, and it was great. We met on a blind date. My brother lined us up on a date, and it's actually quite a funny story, but not one that we'll tell you right here, right now. But yeah, so we met on a blind date, and about 9 months after we went on that first date, we were married. And shortly after getting married, we kind of dove right into life. And I started going to school, going to college, and I also joined the military. And it was a little bit difficult for me when I joined the military. It was a hard time for me to get into the military, but it was something that I felt really passionate about and was important to me. And I felt like it could carry me through into a good career, and so I continued forward with it even though it was difficult. And with school, I was doing wonderful. I mean, I was getting really good grades, and I loved it. I loved learning and spending time, and I loved, hi sweetie pie, and I loved taking the opportunity to be able to learn and grow and progress myself. And as we moved through school and military and overcame those obstacles that we had, we she's half naked. As we moved through all of that, eventually we decided that it was time for us to start having kids.
Yeah. So yeah, all I was doing while Justin was going to school and in the military was I was working. And like you said, life was going great. He was great at school. He's really smart and he loves learning, and it all just came so natural for him, and we finally decided to have kids. And my pregnancy with Elsie was, I'm gonna get emotional now. It was perfect. Everything was how any woman would probably dream it would go. I didn't get that sick. I decided I wanted to have Elsie natural, meaning no epidural, no Pitocin. I mean, I had her in a hospital, but it was an all-natural birth, and it went amazing. Like, everyone tells me I was a pro.
She was. She did awesome. It was awesome to watch and be a part of. But it was an amazing experience. Having our first child was absolutely fabulous, and she was perfect. She was a wonderful little angel, and
she was healthy. She
yeah.
was a chubby little baby, and she was. Nursing was so easy with her. She loved to eat.
Yeah, and she was my little cuddle bug, and she would just lay on my chest, and we would take naps together, and it was just absolute bliss. And at that point we were just so happy, and everything was going exactly the way that we wanted it to, and we had no complaints. And we had bought our own house and everything was moving forward as any couple could dream. And so after a while we decided that our family wasn't big enough. And so we started trying for another baby.
And again, everything was going great.
Yeah,
The
so
pregnancy was
we got pregnant and
easy.
9 months later we had little Harper. And again, she was wonderful. She was such a beautiful little baby. We were so excited to have her. It's something we both looked forward to our entire life. Hi,
Elsie
lovely.
came in to say hi.
Yeah. And, oh my goodness. And so we were just happy and very excited. And then things kind of started to get a little bit rough for us.
At Harper's 2-week appointment, which is
What
still to
happened,
this day
Mom?
surprises me that at the hospital they didn't notice. But she had a heart murmur, and so we went and we got a, what's it called, an
Cardiogram.
echocardiogram, and they discovered she had 2 holes in her heart. And we were terrified at this moment. So luckily after a while they kept keeping an eye on her, and the major hole had sealed on its own. We still don't know if the other one is sealed. They said to go back when she was between 4 and 5 to do another echocardiogram and see if it's sealed, but she seems good. She has so much energy. She doesn't sweat a lot. She doesn't run out of breath, but
we really don't know. And it's something that we don't really talk about because we don't know how it's going to turn out. But at the time we were extremely scared that our newborn baby was going to have open heart surgery. So while we were in the midst of all of this stuff happening with Harper and her heart, which we were absolutely petrified about, before that we had noticed that Elsie was a little bit slow in her progression in comparison to her cousins, whom we had a few that were her same age, and we noticed that they had started talking and doing all sorts of different things that Elsie really wasn't doing. So we were a little bit concerned about it, and we started to talk to doctors about it and started having her see professionals. And shortly after all of this stuff with Harper's heart, we found out that Elsie has autism. And it was extremely difficult to deal with because you don't really know how to react in that kind of situation. We didn't know a whole lot about this issue. We'd never really dealt with it very much. Stephanie had some exposure with a cousin of hers, but we really didn't know what it meant. And it was very difficult not to blame ourselves because you feel like a bad parent. You feel like everything that you've done to that point was wrong. The way that you're trying to discipline your child, the way that you're trying to make them happy, you're trying to feed them so that they grow big. Everything we were doing wrong. And we felt to a certain degree that part of her issue may have been caused by us. So we're dealing with both of these things at the same time. It was extremely difficult. We didn't know how to talk to our family about it. We didn't know how to internalize it ourselves. And so we kind of just kept it inside for the most part. Just tried to move forward and have faith and be strong and hope that eventually things would just work out. Try to keep a good spirit and things like that. But it was really difficult. And then from that point on, things just continued to get more and more difficult. Bills started piling up from therapists and various specialists. We went to all sorts of different people to try and help both of our daughters to make sure that they were healthy and happy. Medical bills, they became quite big. And it was hard for us to deal with. Because of those stresses, I started to have problems with my military obligations because I was missing extremely important parts of my family's life. I was missing birthdays and anniversaries. I was missing the formative years of my children, and I wasn't always there to be able to help out. So I began to struggle with military. I began to struggle with school. It was very difficult for me because I was trying to work as much as I could to make money. I was trying to get good grades. I was trying to be the best soldier that I could be. I was really trying to be as good a husband and father as I possibly could. And at that time is when I decided that I would choose a career that would best support my family. And that career was becoming a doctor. It was an extremely difficult career path, and I knew it would be hard. Stephanie and I had talked about it, but we felt that we'd be able to do it. So we started moving down that path.
We were really excited.
Yeah, and I knew that I could do it. For the first time in my life, I really had faith with a strong woman by my side that I would be able to be the best doctor I could be. And so we started that journey through everything that was going on. And as we moved down that road, eventually it started to take its toll on me. I contracted with the ROTC so that I could become an officer and eventually hopefully have the military pay for my medical school and then be a doctor in the military. With all of that, I was spending a lot of time away from home. I was working multiple jobs. At one point, upwards of 5 part-time jobs to support my family. I was trying to get the best grades that I could. I was struggling in school, but I was still doing well. But things got really, really hard. And at that point, I started to struggle with my health. I wasn't sleeping well, I was gaining weight. I was extremely stressed out, and I started to really have problems. Eventually, the worst thing that could happen to me did. And in an incident that took place, I had a pseudo stroke. 26 years old. The doctors diagnosed it as a complicated migraine. My blood pressure had shifted so fast that it moved the lining in my artery, cutting off temporary circulation to my brain, causing me to have very similar to stroke-like symptoms. And it was a wake-up call, but not enough. Eventually the stress got more and more compounded. My kidneys started to shut down and I developed kidney stones. I almost had complete renal failure. So I was in and out of the hospital. We were doing therapy for our girls. We were seeing doctors all the time. And again, the bills just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
I felt like we lived at the hospital for basically ever since Harper was born. We were nearly always at the hospital for therapy, for doctor appointments, for emergency room visits.
Something.
It was always something.
We were always there for something. And then me, I began to become more and more distant from my family because things were stressful at school and with the military, and my health was fading. So with focusing on med school so much, I wasn't around to help Stephanie out the way that she needed it with our 2 young girls. Eventually we realized that Harper had struggles too, so we started to have her evaluated as well.
Yeah, her official diagnosis is sensory processing disorder. So it's not on the autism spectrum, but she is a very emotional girl. She struggles with communication. She has a slight speech delay, and So, yeah, it was
just another thing. So with all of that, Stephanie and my marriage, it began to really suffer.
We became very withdrawn from one another. We just didn't communicate.
Everything became a struggle. Even the most simple tasks became a chore for us. And we drifted further and further apart. And to a certain degree, we began to resent one another. And we both started to struggle with our own forms of depression. And things just got really, really bad at that point. But not as bad as when I made one of the biggest decisions of my life. I realized that my family was struggling, and with the amount of time I was spending away from them, it was detrimental to them. And so I made the decision with Stephanie that although I had already been accepted to medical school and was supposed to leave within the next few months, decided that I wouldn't go in order to make sure that I could save my marriage and my family. So basically the past 6 years of my life just disappeared in an instant. I had worked so hard for it that I felt like I had finished the race. I was accepted to medical school. It was the greatest accomplishment of my life, academically, that I could have ever imagined. Hi, silly. Coming here with that cheesy grin.
Come here. You want to sit on Daddy's lap?
So we were unable to finish the video without the girls wondering what we were doing. So now we've got them in here with us, so hopefully they're not too much of a distraction. But after I had made the decision not to go to medical school, as I said, it felt like I had finished the race and then someone had taken away my award for completing the race. And shh, you're being very cute. You're being very cute. And at that point, it was something that was extremely difficult in our lives that we had to deal with. And without meaning to, I began to resent Stephanie to a certain degree for not being strong enough to withstand the pressures of me going to school, knowing that that was the life we had chosen. And I think Stephanie had some struggles of her own.
Yeah, I blame myself. I was mad at myself for not being strong enough. I blamed my depression. And at the same time, I also resented Justin for being a quitter, even though we made the decision together, we both agreed that we wouldn't resent each other, that we were okay with the decision. We weren't, because med school is our dream. It wasn't just Justin's dream, it was my dream too. And like he said, we spent 6 years working towards this. And eventually we were able to work through that, but it took a long time. Sometimes I still wish we would have, but at the same time, I don't think I would have worked through my depression like I have. I wouldn't have found the career that I'm choosing now, and I wouldn't have found those passions, and so in a way it's ended up working out, but at the same time we're having to rework our dreams and rework our path in life.
So after that, with that resentment that we had, there was also a lot of added pressure, and each of us fell into an even greater depression. Stephanie struggled very hard at first, And got to the point where neither of us really wanted to live anymore. It was so hard to accept that it felt easier, not easier, it felt as though that was the right choice, that there was just no more reason. We had met the end of our road. So Stephanie struggled, so I stopped going to work to try and deal with that. And then, once we kind of started to get Stephanie back, I fell into a depression. And I struggled with it tremendously. And eventually, we came together and we started to pull each other out and lift each other up.
For a while, it seemed like we both bounced back and forth.
Eventually, the weight of financial burden just became too much, and we had to bite the bullet, and we filed for bankruptcy just this last year. And we lost everything. We lost both of the vehicles that we had at that time. We surrendered our house, basically everything that we owned. Before we got to that point, just sold everything that we had that had any sort of monetary value. We were left with basically nothing.
I think the hardest was the bankruptcy. That was really embarrassing for me. You know, I was okay telling people that our precious little angel had ASD. I was okay, you know, admitting that I had depression. But the bankruptcy was really hard because I felt like a huge failure. But, you know, we made some mistakes and we had been through a lot that had led us to that point.
And so once the bankruptcy happened and once all of that finalized, then we felt as though we were at an all-time low, but also had a great opportunity to start over. And as school was winding down and things were kind of resetting, at least that's how we looked at it, we figured that it was time for us to change things up. And since when we got married, I brought Stephanie up here for our honeymoon, and I obviously loved it, and she fell in love. We decided that the Seattle area would be a good opportunity for us. So we left our family, we left our friends, of whom we had made a great deal of them. We had an amazing support system that we left behind, people who had helped us through our hardest times, and we decided that we'd come up here. And through that we had tremendous help and support, so much so that Stephanie's parents gave us a car because we didn't have one, which nothing can explain how much it means when a parent's able to do that for you, and they're willing to. But it's also something that's difficult, at least for me, because I like to be the one giving, and it's hard for me to receive. And it might be pride, but whatever it is, I am extremely grateful for that. But when we came up here, we had a plan. I had a great job lined up. Stephanie had a great job lined up. When we got here, things weren't quite as they seemed. My job wasn't what they had said it was. I would have been working 10 to 12 hours a day, spending just as much time away from my family as I was when I was at the peak of getting ready for medical school. Stephanie, the company that she chose to go with, they're a new company to the state, and so they're just starting up. And when we got here, we were under the assumption that they were all ready for her to start working, but we realized that that wasn't the case either. So she hasn't been working, and I just recently got another job. Something that, as good as it is, I'm not happy at it. I'm only doing it to pay the bills. And so we're just scraping by, and again, we've had to rely upon others to help us in this time of need. And luckily, from my time living up here before, I have some really good friends. We have a great support system in our church, and they've stepped in and they've helped us out. And so, through all of our struggles and our trials, through everything that we've been through, it's led us to this point right now. So we're here, and this vlog, this is our new beginning. A new beginning that we're inviting everyone to come on with us. Because hopefully, it's gonna be good for us.
Fingers crossed.
And hopefully, if our dreams come true, maybe someday we'll be able to help someone else out, just like so many people have helped us out.
We've been through a lot, but it's been really humbling, and I think it's helped Justin's pride. It's helped me not be so fake. It's helped me open my heart up and admit that my life isn't perfect. It's made us who we are, and we're really excited. Thank you. I needed that Oreo. We hope that we can inspire people, and we hope that we can just make people laugh and give people entertainment. We think our life is silly and fun. We love our little girls. They are so spunky and random. If it wasn't for them, they've been there with us through it all. And they've stayed happy through it all.
So, we'll see you later.